Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of California Limelight. I'm Will Wilson, and joined with me today is my East Coast, West Coast guest host, Thomas Bruno.
Hey Will, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure, and a shout out to Tony Pomponio, who I'm filling in for. I have some big shoes to fill, and I sure as hell hope that I do a good job, Tony. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thomas has been on a couple of episodes of Limelight already, where he shared his experience as a New York firefighter and his acting career on shows like Law and Order. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you again for having me here. It's such a pleasure.
So just the other week, I was out watching the 59th annual Palm Desert Golf Parade, and I spotted a familiar face.
California Limelight.
There's always so many things going on in the Valley. So what are some of your favorite things to do here in the Valley?
Well, I think my number one favorite thing to do, besides enjoying the weather, which is always great, I like the combination of dining and entertaining. You can get some of the best dining out here, and you can get the greatest entertainment from young people to older people, from bands to track singers, from rock and roll to the Great American Songbook. So it's just a wonderful combination: food, music, and fun.
Yeah, it's a great valley out here.
Yeah.
Well, another interesting thing about Thomas is that he was also a star of a viral TikTok.
Oh.
So we'll be tuning into that in just a little bit. And this episode, we have the legendary game show host, Wink Martindale, and the inspiring Johnny Meza. And I also have the latest dish of Hollywood gossip.
Oh my God. Stay tuned, folks. Wink Martindale is an American disc jockey, radio personality, game show host, and television producer. In his 6-decade career, he is best known for hosting Gambit from 72 to 76, Tic-Tac-Dough in the 70s, High Rollers in the 80s, and Debt in the 90s. Let's hear it for the legend himself, the voice himself, Mr. Wink Martindale.
I'm sitting with one of the most iconic game show hosts of all time, Wink Martindale.
Well, thank you for that.
Of course.
What an introduction.
Well, thank you for joining us on California Limelight.
My pleasure.
So take us back to where it all began. How did you get into television, and especially how did you get into game show hosting?
Well, why don't I start with radio first?
Okay.
Because I was 17 years old when I got my first radio job in Jackson, Tennessee. And it was $25 a week on a little 250-watt station. And I went from the 250 to the 1,000-watt station in my hometown to the 5,000-watt station. And then after a couple of years in my hometown, right out of high school, I moved on to Memphis thanks to an audition at WHBQ Radio, which is the same radio station where Elvis Presley's first record was played in 1954. But I was at WHBQ in Memphis during the decade of the 50s and saw the beginning of, really, I watched in awe the beginning of rock and roll in 1954. And then in 59, I came to Los Angeles at my request, thanks to RKO, for whom I worked in Memphis. And I was with KHJ Radio and Television, and then to KRLA, and then I went to Dot Records. I thought I wanted to get out of radio. I was kind of tired of radio. So I went to Dot Records to work as A&R man, and I was there for about 6 months. Didn't like that. Wanted to be back in radio. So I went to KFWB, and then in 1865, I think. No, 1965, I became addicted to a game show on television with Alan Ludden called Password. Remember that one?
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah. Well, you're a little young. You weren't.
But I've seen it in your vault.
So I used to rush home after I got off the air at radio every day to watch Password. And I became addicted to it. And I thought, this is something I'm going to send my agent out to audition me for. So I auditioned for several game shows. And I think the second or third one, I got it. It was called What's This Song? And it made it to NBC. It was only on for a year, but it got me launched in the world of game shows. And so, from What's This Song? Here we are all these years later, and I've either hosted or produced 21 different game shows.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, it's impressive because it proves I never could hold a job.
What a way of thinking about it. But I mean, you've created quite a legacy from it, of course, as well.
Been lucky.
So now you mentioned his name already, Elvis Presley. So you were friends with him, and of course you, you were able to get to know like a different side to him. So what was your memory of him, and what was your friendship like with him?
Well, I met him one night in 1954. I was at WHBQ Radio. Showing some friends around the station because I shouldn't have been there at night because I was the morning man. But I heard a commotion coming out of Dewey Phillips' studio. He was a wild DJ at night from 9 to midnight on that radio station. And so I excused myself from my friends, and I went in and I said, what's going on? And what happened, Sam Phillips, who founded Sun Records, walked in with an acetate that he had cut just 2 hours earlier by a truck-driving singer for Crown Electric Company called Elvis Aaron Presley. It was a song called That's All Right Mama. And Dewey Phillips played it, and the switchboard lit up, and people couldn't get enough of it. He played it over, and it played 14 times in a row. And that was the beginning of Presley Mania. And, of course, we wanted to see what this guy looked like. We knew what he sounded like on this record, but I was the one nominated to call his mom and dad and find out where he was so we could get him to come down to the station. So Mrs. Presley answered the phone, and her name was Gladys, and I said, Mrs. Presley, where's Elvis? She said, well, he was so nervous about his record being played, he went to see a double feature at the Suzors, a double feature Western. So they went down, walked up and down the dark aisles, found Elvis sitting there all by himself watching this Western movie, brought him down to WHBQ Radio. I met him that night, and then he became my friend for the rest of his days.
That's incredible. And Elvis fans might recognize something very significant about the jacket that you're wearing. Is that right?
Yeah, this is a version that Elvis, wore in the movie Speedway. So if this looks familiar to you, I didn't steal it from Elvis. I just bought it at a store in Memphis.
Just copied it, right?
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, so what was some of the behind the scenes of the game show, of your game show history and career? What were, I don't know, what are the things that most audiences would never know or see?
Well, most people ask me, of all the shows that I've either hosted or produced, which one was my favorite? And my answer is always the same because it gave me the longest term of employment. It bought my house. It was called Tic-Tac-Dough. And I did that for 12 years. And I did other shows, most recently one called Debt for Disney, where we paid off young people's credit cards up to $10,000. And I did one with Big Dice called High Rollers. And I did a 21 game, now there's a show called 21 Connection on Game Show Network, but it all began with my show on CBS, which was called Gambit, and it was Get to 21 Without Going Over. Did that for 5 years. That was really my first truly successful network game show. And then from there, I just, went from one show to the other. One would be successful. One wouldn't be as successful. One might last 2 years. One might last a year. But, of course, I finally hit on Tic-Tac-Dough in syndication, which lasted for 12 years for Barry and Enright Productions.
So you mentioned your favorite, of course, but what are some of the highlights, not just of each game, but what were some of the highlights? Like maybe the Ed Sullivan Show? What stood out to you?
Well, my only association with the Ed Sullivan Show, of course, was when I made a record in 1959 called Deck of Cards. Story about a soldier who used a deck of cards in church because he didn't have a Bible. And most people who know Wink Martindale associate me with the record Deck of Cards because it's sold to this date worldwide over 3 million copies. And so I got to do that. It became so popular. Went into the top 5, made it to number 4 on Billboard and Cashbox. Got an invitation to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show in New York, which was really a big deal at the time. because I was still in Memphis working, and to be on the Ed Sullivan Show was really quite something.
So, and you keep busy nowadays. I've seen you out and about in Palm
and about.
Springs.
Out and about.
Are you making fun of my Canadian accent?
Yes, I am.
Probably.
No, I love your accent.
Oh, thank you. I don't think I have one, but thank you. So I've seen you out and around, and you're making lots of public appearances and supporting the community as well. And you've also written a book. So tell us about some of those endeavors.
Well, I wrote this book. Actually, it came out in the early 2000s. I think 2002 it first was published. And I couldn't find a publisher for it because I didn't put any smutty stuff in there, any dirty stuff. And I couldn't find a publisher who would take it on without that. And so I ended up self-publishing it. And, of course, I didn't sell as many as I would if I'd had a big-time publisher. But it's done very well for me. And I have a copy for you, by the way, Will.
Thank you so much.
Cameraman. And it's just really been I've enjoyed, I feel, my word is blessed. I feel very blessed because you asked me a while ago about things that have happened that are of unusual nature on game shows. And the one that always sticks out in my mind was on Tic-Tac-Toe. Every fall, we had an over 80s tournament where all the players were over the age of 80. About your age. Just kidding. All the players were over the age of 80. And I was doing a little conversation back and forth with Dr. Reba Kelly, one of the players. And I said, Dr. Kelly, at your advanced age, she was 96, I said, do you ever consider dating anymore? And to my surprise, she said, yes, Wink, I have 4 boyfriends. I said, really? 4 boyfriends? She said, yes. I get up in the morning with Will Power. I take a walk with Arthur Itis. I come home with Charlie Horse, and I go to bed at night with Ben Gay. And so when anybody asks me, what has happened on a game show that caught you completely unawares, it was that comment from 96-year-old Dr. Reba Kelly. I mean, she was sharp. We had to stop tape for about 10 minutes while we composed ourselves.
Oh, that's a great memory. So how is your view reflecting on it? Instead of experiencing it while your career was happening, what is some of your reflections of your career, especially now in your retirement years?
Well, in looking back, like I said, I feel very blessed. I had no intention, no idea of ever getting into the world of game shows. As a kid, before television, I listened to radio all the time. I was afflicted with radio. I wanted to be on the radio. And I knew that from the time I was about 8 or 9 years old. I used to listen to radio game shows, and they were very popular. Strike It Rich. Oh, I could name several. But that got me interested in the world of game shows in television when later I did indeed get into TV. And of course, I got into TV not through game shows. I was in Memphis, sort of the Dick Clark of Memphis in those days, when Dick Clark had American Bandstand. I did a show on Saturday afternoon for 90 minutes, sponsored by Coca-Cola, called the Wink Martindale Top 10 Dance Party. And I even, because I had met Elvis in 1954, in 56, when he came to Memphis from doing his first movie, Love Me Tender, he actually came on my show. And of course, everybody wanted to get their hands on Elvis. But fortunately for me, mine was the first filmed interview that he ever did. And I still have pieces of that interview from 1956.
My goodness. Well, it sounds like you really lived up to your childhood dream, and that
did.
Yeah, and that you were really determined, driven, and you had to experience a lot of different kind of different games and different avenues to get to where you were.
I heard once when I was very young, and it's turned out to be true. Find something that you really and truly love to do, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. I was lucky in that regard. I wanted to be on radio, and then I got on television, and I enjoyed a modicum of success. And don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Well, that's pretty great advice. So thank you so much for joining us on California Limelight. It's really cool to have you.
That's okay. I got another hour.
What a great interview. I mean, he has so many stories to tell, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He just comes to life, and he just had a lot to share. And yeah, he's great to talk to.
Yeah. Well, full disclosure, Wink and his wife, lovely wife, Sandy, are friends with my wife and I, and we have been out to dinner, and he's just a wonderful man, very humble, and just appealing to everybody. And he still has that great voice.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I know. He's so in the community,
just
and
unbelievable.
what a great guy. All right, well, let's do some top trends.
Top trends. Here we go.
It's not every day that my very own co-host is a top trend. Now, Thomas starred in a TikTok that went viral and has earned tens of millions of views around the world. So let's take a look at it.
That's it. I gotta talk to you about something.
What's up?
So last night, I went on a date with this guy, and the bill came, and he made me pay for the whole thing.
What are you talking about?
I didn't know what to do. He made me pay for it. I didn't know what to do.
He made you pay for the bill.
Yeah, I just didn't know what to say. I was embarrassed.
Did he ask you out?
Yeah, he asked me to go on a date with him.
Who the hell asks you out and makes you pay for the bill?
I don't know. I didn't know what to do. What was I supposed to do?
What were you supposed to do? You should have got up and walked out. I mean, really. I mean, it's bad enough he did something stupid like that, but I gotta be honest with you. You're just as stupid.
What are you talking about?
You can't. Who does that?
What was I?
Was the guy live in his mother's basement that he couldn't afford to pay?
I don't know.
Why would you go out with somebody like that?
I don't know. It was bad, I think. I don't know
Bad?
what to do.
Bad?
Oh my goodness. So you have to tell me the story behind
Oh, well, my friend's daughter grabbed me one day outside and she said, would you do a TikTok video with me? I'm like, I don't know anything about TikTok. She goes, well, you're an actor. She said, I just, I want to throw you some lines and, I'll keep the camera down low and, just kind of like make it up a bit. It was pretty much staged. I told her, I said, I'll give you one shot at it. And I only did that out of respect for her dad because I'm very close to him. I really didn't want much to do with TikTok. I gave it a shot, and all of a sudden it just went crazy. And I got a couple of texts from Jackie afterwards, and she said, we got 5,000 views. We got 10,000. By 11 o'clock at night, it was up to 1 million.
Oh my goodness.
The next morning when the phone rings, it's my daughter. Dad, what did you do? I'm like, I don't know. What did I do? Dad, you're all over the place. Alexis, what did Dad do? You're on TikTok. You're trending.
Oh,
Trending what? I was
worldwide sensation.
Anyway, it just hopped over to other stations. I was on YouTube. It went on to Growing Up Italian. It was trending in Italy in subtitles.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just a fluke.
Well, so here you have it. A host on California Limelight went viral. And it continues to keep going viral.
Yes, it does.
Yes, very cool.
Will over here interviewed my good friend Johnny Meza, who is not only talented, but he gives back to the community. He has a foundation called the Spirit of the Desert, and that foundation provides musical learning opportunities and scholarships for young people in the desert. Johnny has an impressive track record, over 30 years as a solo performer and leading bands in top-notch places, 5-star restaurants, corporate events, exclusive country clubs, and grand concert stages. So let's hear from the man himself, somebody I'm happy to call my friend, Mr. Johnny Mesa.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze as a bar in far Bombay, come fly with me, let's fly away.
I'm sitting right next to Johnny Mesa. So thank you so much for joining us. You have a lot going on in your life here.
Well, thank you, Will. It's my pleasure to be here. Yes.
So you perform at some of the most remarkable venues. So tell us about your performing career, but what got you started?
Well, going back to my hometown, San Bernardino, and my mother played piano by ear, and everyone, my siblings, we all kind of took up an instrument in school. My older sister played clarinet, my brother played trumpet, another sister played violin, so we all took up an instrument. I took up drums early on, and then later switched over to guitar when the Beatles came out because I saw that John and Paul were getting more screaming girls than Ringo. So I just say, well, let's go. So about 12 or 13, I started playing guitar and taught myself in chords and had some friends, and we'd get in the garage and play and, just do like, Rolling Stones or Beatles or whatever was playing, pop of the time of the 60s. So yeah, that's how I started.
So you had a very musical family. What was that like in the evenings when everyone was home trying to practice their instruments? What was that like?
Well, the word cacophony? That means like a mixture of everything, like a circus going on, and you can't tell. But actually, no. We all had our own little practice time. We felt sorry, though, for our sister who played violin because of all the family. She was tone deaf. And whenever she'd practice, it sounded like out of tune, like a cat was being tortured.
No.
And then went to junior college and studied theory and musicianship and composition and started playing piano about that time. I switched over from guitar and then played Hammond organ in bands.
Wow, that's very neat. So what was your journey making it here to the desert? And you play at really amazing venues like the Ritz-Carlton.
When you feel your friends desert you, I started writing when I was about 14, 15. I'd get into my little piano in the garage and start writing my little songs that I thought were going to be, smash hits. But anyway, we would play in clubs, pretty much, and I usually played with horn bands, usually 6 or 7 piece horn bands, and I played Hammond organ. I have a rhythm section with a trumpet sax. And so we did a lot of, cover songs from the era, Doobie Brothers, Chicago, Tower of Power, and all that stuff. I worked with a wonderful lounge group at Caesar's Palace called Company's Company on Cleopatra's Barge. One night I was walking to our dressing room backstage, and Mr. Sinatra, Frank Sinatra, had just finished a concert, or his performance there actually, and he was walking down the hallway. And I just had a brief discussion with him and said hello to him, got to meet him. And he said, where do you live? I said, well, I live in, Southern California. He says, well, move to Palm Springs. We got a lot of music there. So I did. So I moved to Palm Springs, and and it's been, next year it'll be 30 years that I've been here performing, and I started at the Riviera Hotel, and I play country clubs and restaurants, and I've done concerts at the Idlewild Jazz Festival. So it's been good for me.
What else is keeping you busy is the Spirit of the Desert Foundation.
Yeah.
What got you inspired to do something like that?
In 2020, my wife and I, Tracy Meza, we decided, let's start a nonprofit and let's work on getting musical instruments and instruction to kids in elementary school or, middle school too, or in high schools, mainly working with students in school.
What value does even learning a recorder for a kid bring to the world and to them as well?
Good question. We're hoping that it inspires them to go further with their music. With the recorder, of course, you can play clarinet, saxophone, trumpet, any other wind instrument. We try to, and also we have our programs director, I want to mention his name, Tony Bolivar, who's a wonderful sax player, and we've performed together for many years. We're currently teaching at, 4 schools, which will, by the end of the year, will have taught ukulele and recorder to about 360 kids. It's been a very fulfilling life for me. I've been very blessed to be able to continue to play music. And, what other job can you have where you can go and play and people come up to you and say, hey, that sounded really great, or, my wife and I are celebrating an anniversary and you played our song, or it's my birthday, and we try to make it special.
So no plans on quitting then, right? You're going to play till for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
then, right?
Musicians, they don't retire. Usually we can't, but no.
All right, well, that's great. So we have lots to look forward to for your foundation and, of course, your musical talent. So
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Limelight.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Johnny. Up next, Will dishes out the latest Hollywood gossip.
Have you ever wondered what Julie Andrews has been up to lately? The enduring impact of the 87-year-old's remarkable Hollywood career, marked by unforgettable singing and acting performances in iconic movies like Mary Poppins, The Sound of Music, and The Princess Diaries. However, in 1997, Andrews underwent throat surgery that sadly hindered her professional singing career. The beloved entertainer shifted gears within her established profession, venturing into a new creative avenue by co-authoring children's books with her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton. Their most recent fictional work, The Enchanted Symphony, drew inspiration from the real-life events during the COVID-19 pandemic. A Barcelona opera house adorned the seas with plants as people were unable to return to public spaces. And my goodness, that is so cute, and plants are great listeners. All in all, Julie Andrews takes a lot of joy working with her daughter and coming up with creative and fun stories to tell. Up next, former First Lady Rosalind Carter, who dedicated her life to public service and a passionate advocate for mental health, has sadly passed away at the age of 96 in her home in Georgia. Rosalind Carter and her husband, former President Jimmy Carter, aged 99, shared an extraordinary love story that spanned over 8 decades, as they have known each other for nearly their entire lives. Their relationship began in their hometown of Plains, Georgia, setting the stage for the longest marriage in presidential history, lasting over 77 years until Rosalind's passing. It was revealed that Rosalind was battling dementia, but continued to cherish her last moments with her loved ones. The Carter Center, the humanitarian organization founded by the couple, announced that on November 17th that Rosalind had entered hospice care at her home, surrounded by her family. Rosalind Carter leaves behind a legacy of compassion and dedication. Her commitment to social causes, including supporting mental health care, human rights, social justice, and the needs of the elderly. Her unwavering devotion to improving the lives of others will not be forgotten. We extend our deepest condolences to the Carter family and all those who have been touched by her kindness. And that's it for The Other Side of Hollywood. And that's a wrap for California Limelight. A shout out to Fiesta Ford and Quick Lane for supporting our production. Thank you so much for co-hosting with me today and sharing your hilarious TikTok with me.
Well, thanks for having me, Will. I had a great time, and going forward, it's East Coast, West Coast, guest host. Good night.
Until next time, I'm Will Wilson.
And I'm Thomas Bruno. Have a great night, everybody.